Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my YouTube channel here. But first, I want to apologize. If you hear background noise or my mic sounds a little bit too loud, I extremely apologize. I'm using my phone. This is the best way I can show you guys how to overclock my system. Or if you have the same motherboard I got, you can overclock it this way and get good performance. But most importantly, before you take those necessary steps, first things first, figure out what motherboard you want to go with. And make sure what processor you go with. It doesn't matter if it's AMD or Intel. Along you go get the K series means it's an unlocked multiplier. What that means when you have an unlocked multiplier, it means you can overclock your system even further. From the stock specs, you can make it go faster by increasing frequency, increasing voltage. Now, same thing goes with AMD. They got their own K or the Black editions, which I'm not sure if they still kind of make the Black edition, but I might be wrong also, so don't quote me on that. So another thing also, go with a good motherboard. Don't go cheap either, but spend a little bit extra money. Honestly, I would spend anywhere from 170 to like 600. Now depends. Now I'm giving you a range, and you got your options, because I don't have to tell you, hey, I will tell you this: you don't have to spend $600. You don't have to spend $300. But if you want to have the bells and whistles, go ahead. I care about performance. But honestly, I was going to spend more money to go with the Strix. But at that time, they didn't have it. I was like, you know what? I do like how this one looks. The white heat sinks. It looks beautiful. Why not go with it? I know these boards can overclock. But Asus, when they design their boards, they do mention, they always put overclocking features on it for you can overclock. Now, you don't have to overclock this way. Usually, they have softwares. Motherboards will develop their own software to help you to overclock their stuff. Like MSI, I don't know if they still make it today, but they got the OC Genie. You can use that to help you overclock. Asus has their own software to help you overclock. I don't know about Gigabyte. I'm not quite sure. But if you do know that Gigabyte does have a software to help you overclock automatically, please tell me. I would love to know. But also, go with something like that. Go with a processor that it lets you have an unlocked multiplier. And also, most importantly, I can't stress this enough, go with a really good CPU cooler. Corsair's, along AIO coolers, you can go with Corsair, NZXT. I'm not a big fan of Thermaltake, but I would go Corsair anyway because I like them a lot better, because I'm a Corsair person when it comes to power supplies and RAM. Anything else, kiss my ass. I'm sorry, I cursed. Now, so another thing also, you want to look at cooling, make sure your room temperature is nice enough. Now, your room temperature runs a little bit hot, then you can't overclock it that far. But then at the same time, also make sure your case has good airflow. There will be some times your room could be cold as fuck. If your case is not getting good airflow, you're not gonna get your system in general, your CPU, your graphic card, it is going to run a little bit hot. Now, as you see, probably you guys see in the reflection, I am running I'm running a test because I already overclocked this processor before ready. But the second part will teach you guys how to overclock and everything. I'm just talking right here what you need to do to get your overclock going. Now, also what's most important thing is, I already say the cooler part, make sure you go with a good power supply. EVGA been making really good power supply also, but again, I have my love for Corsair. I love their power supplies. I will go with them any goddamn day of the week than any other power supply manufacturer. But don't fall asleep on EVGA, because EVGA makes some really good shit. And I really love how EVGA makes their sleeving. It's not like Corsair sometimes they gotta charge you another $20 more for fucking 24 pin, which I think is a little bit stupidity. But unless it's a really good power supply, man, you should be good to go. But those are the most important things. Make sure that you have a good, nice airflow case. Make sure you got a really good CPU cooler. Make sure you have a really good processor and motherboard. Now, RAM. Let's talk about RAM. Actually, we said about the processor. I was going to repeat it again. But when it comes to RAM, most important thing when I'm done building my system, before I even game, before I finish installing Windows 10 or not installing Windows 10, before I even play a game, I will wait till the next day to play a game. because I will strictly test out the system first. Make sure it is stable. First thing I do when it comes to RAM, before I even overclock, is do MEN tests. You can buy a flash drive. If you got a Micro Center nearby, you can buy a cheap flash drive for a really good deal. It should not cost you more than 10 anyway. You can go to Micro Center, get one of those, and when you get home, you download MEN test. Now, what MEN test does is test out your RAM, make sure that it runs stable. So what it does is, it will show you errors. It will show you that, okay, something's going on with this RAM. It's giving this error. So what does that mean? What it tells you? It means that the RAM is shit. So if you've done that first, then you eliminate another headache off your mind, which is like when you run the stress test and you get blue screen stuff, then you're going to be like, okay, you're going to go nuts. It's going to be, well, it's going to be like the voltage. It needs to go higher. No, because now the RAM is shit because you did not test out the RAM first. So I do that first. I test out the RAM. Make sure that RAM is stable. Then after that, I'll test out once I know everything's stable, and make sure it runs at XMP, whatever frequency is at, 2400, 2133, or 3000, or 233, or whatever. I make sure that I run MEN test first before I do anything else, before I test it. So that's the most important thing. Once you have that tested and stable, then I overclock my system. And I'll make sure that the RAM is stable and the CPU is stable at full load with no problem. But also keep in mind, you want to make sure you have good temperatures. I will not, if even you see hits 90, stop running the test. That means that you have to lower down the CPU frequency a little bit down and lower down your voltage and see where it lands at. But if you see that hits 90, I stop hitting the test right away. But it's running at 80 to 70. I feel a lot more safer there than seeing it up and run, seeing it hitting to 90s. That's not a good thing at all. So most important thing, now I'm going to stop the video right here. Most important thing you guys really need to make sure is, make sure you have a really good airflow case. Make sure you have a really good unlock multiply processor, AMD or Intel. Make sure you have a really good motherboard, really good CPU cooler. You really want to make sure you have all those things. Because once you get all those things perfectly, then you should not be having a problem overclocking. Also test the RAM. Make sure even the RAM, even before you buy RAM, call Corsair, I'll call Kingston. I'll make sure that stick I'm getting, I'll give them the model number and make sure that it will be compatible. I know it's a little bit frustrating because you guys want to build a system, but trust me, you do this, it will save you time and a headache. Because God forbid, if you just rushed it, if you rush things, there are going to be mistakes you're going to make down the line. It's the most important thing to do research, take your time, relax, do those necessary. For some people, maybe not necessary, but for me, I had to go to those steps because the last thing I want, even if it's my system or my friend's system, or if I'm building a system for somebody, I want to make sure that system runs stable. The last thing I don't want, if I rushed it and something happens to that computer, then I'm fucked. And especially when you're running, when you're playing a game like Battlefield, whatever game you're playing, and you're doing really good, and your game crashes, you have blue screen stuff, you're fucked. Or you're playing CS:GO competitive, and you're doing really good, and fuck, your computer goes fucked, and that's it. You're banned from competitive for like 30 hours or 2 hours or whatever. The reason why I'm saying this, because you don't have to run into these problems. Trust me, in life, you learn the easy way and you learn the hard way. And sometimes I learned the hard way, but now it's better off you learn the easy way. That way you can take your time knowing the problem before it happens. Make sure everything's stable and you should be good to go. So thank you guys. Enjoy part 2 of this video and goodbye. Okay, so as you see, these are my temps right here. Stock Haswell E5820K. Now, let's open up the 2 softwares that I recommend. Now, these are the 2 softwares I recommend to test your CPU overclock and also your RAM overclock, or test out both of them at the same time. Now, usually, I understand 24 hours is it's a must, but honestly, I tested out to 12 hours. Same thing I did with my brother's setup. I tested out even after 9 hours. I was like, okay, run it, and stable with no issues. But honestly, if you want to be safe and sorry, I would just test it at 24 hours. But me, I I tested it after 12 hours, it would be perfectly fine, or 24 hours. But most of the times on my setup already, it's already been tested before in 24 hours and no problem. Now, these are the two softwares. Either of those two will be great. I will use the Asus Real Bench, and then use this one also. I can't pronounce this one. Jesus, I'm sucked. But any of these two tests will be perfectly fine. A Data 64 Extreme will be perfectly fine, and Real Bench will be perfectly fine. If I mispronounced that one, I apologize. So let's get right to it. I'm going to pause the video, and let's get right to the BIOS. Okay, so let's resume. I just rebooted my system, and now we're in the BIOS. This is the Asus BIOS right here. What did I think about this BIOS? Oh, I like it way much better than Gigabyte, because there's sometimes with Gigabyte, sometimes it locks up on me, and you can't use the mouse sometimes. Like this, it's like buttery smooth, no problems. But I'm old-fashioned. I like to use my keyboard. So let's get right to it. So first things first, let's go hit F7. Oh no, that's the wrong thing. Wrong. There we go. Now, first things first, before I go AI tweaker, I go CPU config, go all the way down. Now, you also want to disable your turbo boost. You also want to disable your C state and your speed stepping. I disable all this because honestly, I have a really good cooler. I'm going to keep my processor running at 4.4 the whole day. Yes, keep in mind, this will kind of kill your lifespan of your processor. But for me, I don't give a shit. But it's fun when you overclock, which I love it. So I disable all these things right here. Now we go back. And now we're going to move to AI tweaker next, which I'm going to leave at XMP. And of course, keep that base clock at 100. And of course, sync all cores. We're going to set this to 4.5. Let's keep on going. We don't need, I leave these at auto. This will help a lot, because once you enable it, it can help you with extreme overclocking, but also keep it nice and stable. And also, let's go to the extreme. I'm gonna do CPU long line calibration to 5. And let's continue going down. That's it from there, and we're gonna keep on going down to Tweak Your Paradise, and we're gonna make sure. No, it's not here because I never messed around with these before. Now, CPU core voltage before. The most important thing when it comes to overclocking also, it disable all power savings, just like you I did before in the advanced setting. Disable the speed stepping, the turbo boost. I disable the turbo boost because I don't want to go further than 4.5. I want to leave at 4.5. No problem, just like that all day. Now, voltage really depends. Now, usually people will go automatic. I will do that first and then run the stress test. But since I know this processor well, and I've done it before, it'll be stable at 3.110 volts. So you want to dial that there. Really? Okay, there's nothing else right here. Yes, and also you want to disable spectrum. If I mispronounced that one, my bad. I disabled that also, because that really helps with your overclocking. Pretty much that much. Now as you see, the target CPU turbo mode frequency is at 45. My DRAM is 2400 using XMP, which is pretty good, really awesome. Pretty much I am good to go right here. So let's go back to the, let me tap F6 right here. Now this, what I love about Asus right now, is I have all my fans that are quiet. I have running 100%. My pump, I have a low speed, because I still get really good temperatures, even though my pump is a little bit loud. But really, you have the options to do whatever you want. You can even adjust the DC mode or the PWM. Same thing goes to the pump. So if you have that EK pump with the D5 or the DDC that uses PWM, you'd be golden. You can readjust the RPMs on it, how fast you want, how slow you want. I just have mine at, let's go back to easy mode. As you see, my CPU fans is at 1248 RPM, and this is at the 3100 to 3200 RPM. I could increase it a little bit higher, but honestly, that's a really good temperature at 29C. So again, I always want to double check and make sure everything is good to go. I disable the turbo. So that's the most important thing when it comes to overclocking. Just make sure all your cores is at 45, which is sync all cores. And also you want to make sure that your CPU power saving mode is disabled. So now we're going to hit F10 and boot up to Windows. And we're going to hit yes or OK. And we're going to pause the video right here. We're going to boot up to Windows. Okay, so I'm back here, ladies and gentlemen. Give me 1 second. So I do have right here I have all the programs installed for the stress test, but I'm going to use this one. Now, there are a few things which I want to throw down the link in the description about what software you can use to download. Of course, this is just a free trial. And also, if you don't want to use it, you want to use the Asus one, just download the CPU-Z. So it will give you a really good reading right there. As you see, it's at 1.311 volts, but the processor is now overclocked to 4.5 gigahertz. That is my temperature right there. Or you can still, which is the same thing, CPU is the same thing as this one. It can also tell you what's your CPU voltage. But the reason I like this one is it gives me more information, especially with the RAM. I want to make sure that it is using XMP, which it is right now. Because those are the timing, that is the half of the frequency of the stick. And those are my timings, which is perfect in my book. So now what we're going to do is, what's most importantly is, you could use another temp. I use real temp to monitor my temps, but you can't use. They design their own temperature thing. It's called hardware monitor, which is a free trial. Also, really gives you a good idea, but it also gives you more information about your RPM, your fans, how hot your motherboard is, how cool your motherboard is running. Just give you temperatures, which is really awesome. So let's get right to it. Now I'm gonna stop the video right here. I'm gonna end the video right here. Now, once you realize that everything's running stable after 12 hours or 24 hours or 9 hours, test it out in gaming, make sure it runs perfectly stable, no problems, all that stuff. If you see blue screens of death, then you have to adjust something in the BIOS. Maybe you have to up the voltage a little bit more, or you have to disable a few things, which I highly doubt. This is the way I've been running the setup, my overclocking for a while. It works perfectly. Everybody has their own methods and personal preference, but this is the way I do it. But honestly, any more questions, if you guys need help, any questions about overclocking, any other computer related or gaming peripherals, just hit me up. I'll answer as soon as possible. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, comment, subscribe. Please be safe.